In the last video, I left off talking about line, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about qualities of line. The qualities of lines include consistency. So, are the lines interrupted? Do the lines stay the same in their entire iteration? Lines can be varying in thickness. They could be very thin lines, like a strand of hair. Lines vary in length. They could be long lines, short lines. Lines can have varying levels of curvature. They could be straight, they could be undulating. Lines also have different orientations. So lines can be diagonal, horizontal, or vertical. And they can also switch back and forth between these orientations. The qualities of line contribute to different visual and emotional effects in compositions. To explore that idea further, let's take a look at this painting by Jacques-Louis David. I asked you in the last video to consider the lines that make up the bodies of the men in this painting, and then the lines that make up the bodies of the women in this painting. I asked you to think about how the qualities of line compare in in the genders of the figures. First, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on this painting. This painting is based on a play, and the play is based on a story, or the premise of the play is this story of battle between ancient Rome and the neighboring city of Alba. Depicted in Jacques-Louis David's painting are three members of the Horatius family, these young men here, and they have volunteered to duel members of the Curiati, who was a family from Alba. And this duel would settle an ongoing war between these two cities. During the neoclassical period, in the late 18th century, early 19th century, France experienced a new interest in the classics, especially in ancient Rome. So the ideals of the Roman Republic were embraced as emblematic of the ideals that would come to form the French Republic after the Revolution in 1789. These ideals included patriotic duty and giving up personal well-being to defend a greater good. So France was looking back at the Roman Republic, so before the 1st century CE. They were going back really far to find these ideals. In Jacques-Louis David's painting, we see the three Horatii pledging their duty to the Roman Republic as their father raises up swords, which serve as the center of this oath, or the object of this oath. To the right of the painting, we're looking at the women of the Horatii. One of the women depicted here is engaged to marry a member of the Curiati family. The second woman is married to one of the Horatii brothers, but she was originally from the Curiati family. So either way, one of these women will lose a loved one. And then here in the background of the painting depicted is a nanny who gathers these two children and attempts to shield them from the events that are occurring, and really the implied events. So the imminent battle between the Curiati and the Horatii. It's probably difficult to see in this slide, but there's a little girl depicted, and her back is facing the viewer. She's huddled up against the body of the nanny. And then there's a little boy. The nanny attempts to shield his eyes from viewing the brothers and the father, but he peels away the fingers of the nanny here. So he's peeking out between her fingers to see what's going on. This is indicative of the perceptions of gender in late 18th century France. So the little girl is shielded from the horrors of war, and then the little boy attempts to look out to essentially what his future will be, what his duty will be as a citizen of the Roman Republic in this case, or kind of by extension of the French Republic. Additionally, we're seeing how people in France perceived adult men and women based on the lines that are used to create the bodies of the Horatii men and the Horatii women. So the lines that make up the bodies of the men are straight, they're rigid, they're strong. We've got all these really straight lines. We've got triangles implied here, an implied shape too, in addition to the implied line. And then the lines that make up the body of the women are squishy, they're soft, they're curving, they're really fluid, they can't support anything. The women are overwhelmed, they're consumed by emotion, they're consumed by their sorrow. They're only concerned with the imminent deaths of their loved ones and the implications that will have on their family. This contrasts with the resolution that we're seeing in these straight, long lines that make up the body of the men. They're unconcerned with their personal problems, with their imminent death, perhaps. Rather, they're concerned with the greater good, with defending their community of Rome against Alba. We also see how gender is portrayed by the perspective of a woman in Renee Cox's Yo Mama. This is a photograph from 1993. And Renee Cox uses line to evoke strength, much in the same way that Jacques-Louis David does in his painting. But Renee Cox uses it to imply the strength of motherhood and the fortitude of a mother. You'll see that the lines that make up Renee Cox's body are these same strong, rigid, straight lines. In this case, her female body is very much able to support weight. She is a strong figure. So with these two examples, we can see that line can be used to create emotion. It can be used to create meaning in artwork.